Well, would you look at that? We got another tier list. Let's get straight into it, guys. This time with a great one tier list. So, if you haven't already, like the video. Major help to the channel. And without further ado, let's jump into it. So, we're going to start out with the oldest one. So, we'll start out with the white-tailed deer. Then we'll go to the red deer. And then we will go to the moose. Or actually, no, it's the bear next. Then the moose. Then we will go to the fallow and then the tar, from oldest to newest. So, first up, we got the Great One Whitetail. It was the very first Great One added to the game, and also still has the best variety in antler type. I'd say there's pretty much no debate that this does have the most antler variety out of any Great One in the game. But unfortunately, it does lack in the fur type department. There is no, special fabled furs aside from one. And that one just happens to be the fabled piebald, which is incredibly tough to get. In fact, to date, since the release of this, which was over 4 years ago, there's only been less than 10 confirmed legitimate fabled piebald Great One whitetail. So it's incredibly rare. 99.9999999% of people are going to get a common fur when they get a Great One whitetail. But the racks do make up for it a bit. Like I mentioned, the rack variation is really good. True Rax has a large effect on these antlers in particular for some reason, where you get some super wide, some super tight, some super twisted antlers. There's a lot of variety in the antlers of these whitetail. And because of that, I'd say they probably rank... where should I put it? You know what? We're going to put it in A tier, because I think it's a really good Great One. The only thing that's holding it back is the lack of more fabled furs. Also, we're going to do something real quick. I just realized since we only have 6 of these, it feels weird to have 6 different tiers. So I'm going to go ahead and just delete the D tier. It's kind of pointless, to be honest, in this particular one. So we're just going to go with this right here. So now that we have adjusted the tier list, let's go ahead and move on to the second one. This is the Red Deer Great One. Now, the Red Deer Great One was the second Great One ever released. And at the time, this was my favorite because it had that beautiful fabled spotted fur on it. And I loved that. I absolutely loved the fur on it. And also the foliage in the antlers, the vines that are in it, are actually quite cool. It's quite unique. Unfortunately, over time, I quickly started to realize that there was not much variety with the Red Deer Great One. And although, it's a very beautiful Great One, there's only one fur type that you can get, which is the fabled spotted. And there's only 4 different racks, whereas the whitetail has 6 different rack variations with, tons of combination racks. That really hurts the Red Deer here, especially since all 4 of the different racks look very similar to each other. So unfortunately, in terms of everything, this is a C tier Great One. It's just not nearly as good as it could have been if they had added in more fur types and made a little bit more variety in the antlers, maybe have different types of foliage in the antlers instead of just the vines. Maybe have a map specific foliage in the antlers, so that you go to Hirschfeld and you'll get some fall themed ones. You go to Tiabaroa, you'll get those vines. I think that would have made them a lot more interesting. And I really hope in the future they do something like that, either add more furs or put more variety in the antlers and the vines that are in the antlers. But as it stands, it's a C tier Great One. I still love hunting for them, but there's just not a lot of variety with them. Next up, we have the Great One Black Bear, which was the first time that we had ever seen multiple fur types for a Great One, which was huge. This was pretty groundbreaking when it released, and it was also a Great One that not a lot of people expected. There was a lot of people that wished it had been something else, like a moose, which we ended up getting later. But it was still a pretty cool Great One. It's one of the toughest Great Ones to get. You really have to put a lot of effort in to get a Great One bear, especially if you want to get multiple Great One bears. So it's one of the least grinded ones, but also probably one of the prettiest. However, there's only so much you can do with a predator species that doesn't have antlers, obviously. So I think for that reason, it is going to go in B. Now, it's got a lot of really good fur types, but it's just not anything too crazy, It's got 6 fur types, and that's about as far as it goes. There's not too much else you could say about it. Now, for the moose, though. Oh, the moose. Where do I even begin with moose? This is an incredible Great One. Not only is there 4 different rack types, but there's also the combination that you can see on screen right now. This is a 50-50 combination of 2 of the different racks that you can get with the Great One Moose. It also has 6 different fur types, and all of the fur types look incredible. The moose really is like the pinnacle of Great Ones in Call of the Wild, in my personal opinion. Not only is it one of the most beautiful Great Ones with some of the coolest antlers, but it's also one of the most rewarding feeling grinds that you can do for a Great One. It's relatively tough to get, but once you kind of like understand how the moose work and you get into a groove, it is so satisfying to get this guy to show up. And for that, they are in S tier. This is a phenomenal Great One. Best in the game that we have as of now, in my personal opinion. And I really hope to see more Great Ones in the future that come with 6 or more fur types and at least 4 sets of antlers, which they actually did at one point in the future as well, but we'll get to the tar later. So next up is the fallow deer. The fallow deer is a beautiful Great One. Currently, I believe it's like, 4 different racks and 5 different furs, if I'm not mistaken. And a lot of them look pretty good. They went with a little bit more of a realistic look on the fur types for the most part. Like there was, I think, 2 or 3 fur types that looked relatively realistic, with that being the painted, the mocha, and the golden. Those had a much more realistic feel to them while still being really pretty. And then you have a couple that are a bit more crazy looking, the fabled hooded and the fabled silver. All of the antlers looked pretty realistic, aside from, obviously, the Irish elk rack, which looks very similar to a prehistoric beast called the Irish elk. Aside from that one, all the antlers looked relatively realistic and just resembled like giant, non-typical or typical fallow deer that you'd see in real life, aside from maybe the spoon rack. I guess the spoon rack is a little bit crazy, but I suppose it still could happen. The point is, they did a little bit more of a realistic take with the fallow deer without getting it to be, like, too boring. And it turned out pretty good. I like the fallow deer. I don't think it's as good as moose, like, at all. However, it is still solid. I'd give this one probably a high... we'll give it a low A tier, I think. I think right below the whitetail is probably where I would place the fallow. But it's really a toss-up. Like, they're very neck and neck, so it could go either way. I think whitetail I'll still have higher just because of the sheer variety of antler looks that you can get for each rack. Like, there's so much variety. No 2 Great One whitetail look the same. There's always slight differences, which I love. And that brings us to the final one. Obviously, this is going to be a pretty short video because there's only 6 Great Ones in the entire game. But the Great One Tar, this is the most recent Great One. And it does have the largest variety of combinations for fur and horns that we have of any Great One in the game. If I'm not mistaken, we have 7 different fur types and I believe 5 different horn types. Yeah, I believe there's 5 different horn types and 7 different fur types, which gives us the largest number of variety in any Great One in the game. The Great One Tar has so much variety. A lot of the fur types look really, really good. You've got the fabled latte that is my personal favorite. You've got the fabled skull, which is a fan favorite from what I've seen. A lot of people like this one that you see on screen right now, the fabled gold. There's a lot of awesome furs and awesome horns for the Tar. I think it's a really beautiful Great One. Now, the only downside to them is they're very difficult to hunt. They are incredibly difficult to hunt, actually. You have to put in a lot of time to understand how they work. It takes a while to find a setup that works for you. And so not as many people appreciate them. But they really are a gorgeous Great One. And in fact, I think they're probably... I don't know, man. Maybe... This is going to be so tough. This is going to be so tough to rank them. Because I have repeatedly said, you know, moose is my favorite, then fallow, then whitetail, then tar. But now that I think about it, and I've talked about all these things, I don't know what I should do here. I honestly feel... I feel like the Tar Great One, because it doesn't have antlers, obviously, and I'm a huge antler guy. I really like antlers on animals in Call of the Wild. I prefer an antlered animal over a horned animal or like a predator or anything like that. So I think I gotta put it high B tier. I think I've gotta put it high B tier. But we'll take like a couple moments to real quickly look over all the positionings here and see if there's anything that I would like to change. And if I decide to change anything, we'll move them around. You know what? No, I think this is pretty good. I think this is about how I would have it. S tier is the moose, whitetail deer, high A, fallow deer, right neck and neck with them. It's to be honest, they should be like literally on top of each other, like, because they're completely even to me in terms of like how cool they are. I don't really have too much of a preference in terms of which one of these I think is better. I think both whitetail deer and fallow deer great one are equally my second favorite. They're both amazing. Then we've got the tahr, then the bear, then the red deer. No F tiers as of now, which is great. And I think it would be pretty hard, to be honest, to make an F tier great one because they all look really cool in their own way. They all have things that make them unique and interesting. Even the red deer, with it having such low variety, is still a C tier because it's just a beautiful looking great one. It doesn't have a lot of variety, but it's still beautiful, so there's no way I could put it in F. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Do you agree with my list? Do you think that you would do it a little bit different? Let me know what you would change on here. And if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, leave a comment down below, like I said, and click that like button. I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace!